Hi all, welcome back, and we want to talk now about angle measure. And no doubt you are familiar with what it means to measure an angle in degrees. It simply measures the opening, and we know that in a straight line there are 180 degrees, and in a circle there are 360 degrees. So an angle is usually indicated with that symbol, that little, looks like a small zero. And we know, as I said, that there are 180 degrees in a straight line and 360 degrees in a circle. But what, pray tell, do we mean when we talk about a radian? So here is the formal definition of a radian. It is going to be the central angle of a circle, and the central angle of a circle will have a measure of 1 radian if it intercepts an arc on the circle with the same length as the radius of the circle. So take a look at this picture. So in this picture, this angle right here will be 1 radian if the arc that it intercepts and the radius are the same length. So the arc would be length r and the radius would be length r. And what's really important to understand is the following. In a unit circle, which is the one that we are using in the development of sine and cosine, if we have a central angle of measurement t, it will subtend, or the arc that it creates right here will also have measure t. Let's get that right. And we talked about that actually before in the previous lecture. But that is the really important idea of why we work in a unit circle and why a central angle of measure t will also subtend an arc on the circle with the same measure. So working between degrees and radians, we make this comment that every circle we know has 360 degrees in it. However, a unit circle, by the definition of radians, will have 2 pi radians in it. And so in a unit circle, 360 degrees and 2 pi radians basically are measuring the same angle. So it makes sense to talk about how we would convert between degree measure and radian measure. And it's important to understand the key here is that 180 degrees is really exactly the same thing as pi radians. And so suppose we have, let's say 40 degrees, and we want to change it to radians. Here's what we do. We take 40 degrees and we multiply it by pi over 180 degrees. And what that means is that we're really just multiplying by 1. But what happens is the degrees cancel out and we're left in radians. And so what this equals is basically 4 pi over 18, yes, that can be simplified, radians. Pretty simple. Let's go the other way. Let's suppose that we have an angle which is, well, let's just say it's 2 radians. And we want to express it in terms of degrees. First of all, just think for a second about 2 radians. 2 is a number. If you think about the unit circle, pi over 2 is at the top. Pi over 2 is about 1.57. So 2 radians is going to be somewhere in the second quadrant, just so that you understand that. So if I take 2 radians and I multiply it by unity, which in this case is going to be 180 degrees over pi, what that gives me is 360 degrees over pi. And that measure is about equal to 115 degrees, which is indeed in the second quadrant as we expected. And the last thing to say about radian measure is that it's a pure number, a real number, and it doesn't have any units attached like degrees. So if you think back about the definition of sine and cosine, when we're talking about the sine or cosine of t, where t is a number on the real number line, there's no units associated with that number. Okay, so that's it, and we're going to talk at the next lecture a little bit more on the unit circle. So, see you then. Ciao, ciao.